Jake Sullivan walked into the giant hall where the Galactic Council met. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor. The hall was huge, with walls that went up so high he could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air, giving everything a blue glow. Jake was not a tall man, but he stood straight and proud. His hair was gray now, and his face had lines from years of hard work. He wore a simple black uniform with no fancy decorations. Behind him walked Lisa Harper, a young woman with short brown hair and smart eyes. She carried a small computer in her hands. The council members sat in big chairs arranged in a circle. Most of them were not human. The Zephyrians looked like giant bugs with shiny shells and clicking mouths. Their leader, Chancellor Vexithara, was the biggest of all. Her eyes were like black mirrors that reflected the floating lights. The Korthak were different. They looked like walking crystals, their bodies made of clear stone that changed colors when they moved. When they talked, their voices sounded like wind chimes in a storm. There were other species too. Some looked like fish that could walk on land. Others were covered in thick fur and had too many arms. But they all had one thing in common. They all looked down on humans. For 300 years, humans had worked for the Empire. They dug deep into dangerous planets to find rare metals. They fixed machines that other species said could not be fixed. They built space stations in places where no one else wanted to go. When there was a war, humans carried the heavy weapons and did the fighting that others were afraid to do. The Empire called humans useful, but they never called them equal. Jake stopped in the center of the circle and looked around at all the alien faces. Some were curious. Most looked bored. A few seemed annoyed that their time was being wasted. Chancellor Vexithara clicked her mouthparts together. The sound echoed in the big hall. "Human Sullivan," she said, her voice like scraping metal. "You requested this meeting. Speak quickly. We have important matters to discuss." Jake did not hurry. He had waited 300 years for this moment. He could wait a few more seconds. "The Empire has made a new law," Jake said, his voice clear and calm. "All humans must now change their bodies. You want to make us stronger, faster, better at working. You want to change our minds too, so we think less and work more." Several council members made noises of agreement. To them, this seemed like a good idea. Why would anyone not want to be improved? "You treat us like animals," Jake continued. "Like pets that need to be trained, like machines that need to be upgraded. But we are not animals, we are not machines. We are people." Chancellor Vexithara's eyes flashed with anger. "You forget your place, human. The Empire has given your species work, food, and protection. In return, we ask only that you serve efficiently. This new improvement will make your lives easier." "No," Jake said simply. "We refuse." The hall became very quiet. Even the floating light seemed to dim. No one had ever refused the Empire before. No one had ever said no to the Galactic Council. Lisa Harper stepped forward and touched her computer. Numbers and pictures appeared in the air above them, glowing like ghosts. "We have been planning this for 50 years, she said. "Every human ship, every human worker, every human family in Empire space. We are all leaving." The council members began to talk all at once. Their voices mixed together in a noise like a storm. Some laughed, some shouted, some just stared in shock. Chancellor Vexithara raised one of her clawed hands and the noise stopped. "Leaving? Where will you go? Your home planet is too small. Your colonies are too few. You need the Empire to survive." Jake smiled for the first time since entering the hall. "We found 17 new worlds beyond Empire space. Good worlds with clean air and fresh water. We have been secretly moving supplies there for years. We have been building new cities, new farms, new factories." "Impossible," hissed a Korthak council member, his crystal body turning red with anger. "We monitor all human activities. We would know." Lisa Harper touched her computer again. New pictures appeared in the air, ships landing on green planets. Humans building homes under alien suns, children playing in fields under purple skies. "You monitor what we let you see," Lisa said. "You never bothered to really look at us. You never tried to understand us. You just saw us as tools. Dr. Richard. Kane had been the secret hero of the plan. He was a quiet man who worked in labs at the edge of human space. For decades, he had been developing new technologies, ways to travel faster between stars, ways to grow food on dead planets, ways to build cities that could survive anything. Empire scientists thought they were smarter than humans. They never asked what humans were working on in their spare time. They never wondered why humans always seemed to fix problems in ways that surprised everyone. This is madness, Chancellor Vexithera clicked. You have contracts. You have duties. You cannot simply walk away from your obligations. Watch us, Jake said. The pictures in the air changed again. Human workers walking away from mining stations. Human engineers shutting down the machines they had built. Human soldiers laying down their weapons and boarding ships. Captain Nina Brooks was shown, on the screen, standing on the bridge of a huge transport ship. She was a woman with kind eyes and strong hands. Behind her, thousands of humans sat in seats, all looking toward the front of the ship, all looking toward their new home. The first ships are already leaving, Lisa said. By the end of this month, every human in Empire space will be gone. Every human worker, every human family, every human child. You will be back, Chancellor Vexithera said, but her voice was not as confident as before. Within a year, you will come crawling back, begging us to take you in. You cannot survive without the Empire. Jake turned to leave, but stopped and looked back at the council. We survived on Earth for thousands of years before we met you. We built cities and ships and sent people to the stars. We did all of that without your help. We will do it again. As Jake and Lisa walked toward the door, they could hear the council members arguing behind them. Some wanted to stop the humans, by force. Others said it was impossible. A few wondered if they should try to negotiate. But it was too late for negotiation. The humans had made their choice. Captain Nina Brooks received the final message from the council as her ship crossed the border of Empire space. Chancellor Vexithera's face appeared on the screen, her bug-like features twisted with anger and something that might have been fear. You will regret this, the Chancellor said. You will come back begging for mercy. Nina smiled and turned off the screen. Behind her, a human child laughed as she played with a toy spaceship. The child did not know that she was making history. She did not know that her people were leaving slavery behind forever. The Empire had no idea what they had just lost. But they would learn soon enough. The last human ship disappeared into the darkness between the stars, carrying 3 billion people toward a future they would build with their own hands. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left Empire space. Chancellor Vexithera sat in her office, staring at reports that made no sense. The numbers on her screen showed things that should not be possible. Production was down everywhere. Machines were breaking faster than they could be fixed. Simple jobs that humans used to do in hours now took days or weeks. The first real disaster happened at mining station Alpha 7. Chief Engineer Zalthar had been confident he could run the station without humans. He was a Zephyrian after all. His people had built starships when humans were still living in caves on their small planet. The mining station pulled valuable metals from the core of a dead planet. It was dangerous work, but humans had made it look easy. They had built clever machines and systems that worked perfectly together. Everything was connected in ways that seemed simple but were actually very complex. Zalthar thought he understood how it all worked. He was wrong. When he tried to make the extraction machines work harder, something went wrong. The machines that cooled the equipment stopped working properly. The systems that cleaned the air began to fail. Within hours, the entire station was shaking itself apart. Zalthar stood in the control room watching his screens turn red with warnings. Alarms were ringing everywhere. The metal walls around him were getting hot to the touch. Shut it down. He ordered his workers, shut everything down. But it was too late. The humans had built the systems to work together. When one part failed, it caused other parts to fail too. The station tore itself apart from the inside. Zalthar escaped in a small ship just before the station exploded. He watched from space as 300 years of mining equipment turned into a ball of fire. The Empire had lost billions of credits in a single day. The problem spread quickly to other places. On the military side, General Korthak Veldan was discovering that fighting wars without humans was almost impossible. Humans had not just been soldiers. They had been the ones who made sure food and weapons got to the right places at the right times. The general's crystal body flashed angry red colors as he read the latest reports. A simple supply mission to the border worlds had turned into a disaster. Ships had gone to the wrong planets. Food had spoiled because no one knew how to keep it fresh. Weapons had been delivered without the right ammunition. How did they do it? The general asked his staff. How did the humans coordinate all of this? No one had an answer. The humans had made it look easy, but it was not easy at all. They had used thousands of small tricks and shortcuts that no one else understood. They had talked to each other in ways that seemed casual, but were actually very organized. Without humans, the Empire's military was like a giant machine with no oil. All the parts were still there, but nothing worked smoothly anymore. The economic problems were getting worse every day. Trading posts across the galaxy were reporting system failures. Computers that humans had programmed were breaking down. Equipment that humans had maintained was falling apart. Even simple things like elevators and air filters were not working. Right. Ambassador Helen Carter was the only human who had stayed behind. She worked at a small embassy on the Empire's capital world. Every day she received desperate messages from Empire officials who wanted to talk. Helen was a calm woman with gray hair and patient eyes. She had volunteered to stay behind to help with the transition. She had not expected the Empire to fall apart so quickly. They want to negotiate, Helen reported in a message to the Human Colonial Council. She was alone in her office talking to a camera that would send her words across the galaxy to the new human worlds. They are offering citizenship rights, representation in the council, even their own planets to govern. The message would take weeks to reach the human colonies, and the answer would take weeks to come back. Helen knew what the answer would be, but she waited patiently. While she waited, the Empire continued to crumble. The Crystalline Confederacy announced they were ending 3 major trade agreements. The Aquatic Collective said they were looking for new partners. Even species that had been loyal to the Empire for centuries were starting to ask questions. The truth was becoming clear to everyone. The Empire had not been as strong as it seemed. Humans had been holding it together with their skills and hard work. Without them, the whole system was falling apart. On the new human colony world of Haven, Council Leader Paul Roberts read Helen's message with his advisors. Haven was a beautiful planet with blue skies and 2 moons. The human settlements were growing quickly, and the colonists were happier than they had ever been under Empire rule. They are scared, said Dr. Richard Kane, who had come to Haven to continue his research. They finally understand what they lost. Dr. Kane was older now, but his eyes were still bright with curiosity. His laboratories on Haven were producing amazing new technologies. Machines that could turn desert into farmland, computers that could think in ways no one had imagined, ships that could travel between stars faster than anything the Empire possessed. Should we help them? Asked Maria Santos, one of the council members. She had been a mining engineer under the Empire, and she remembered how badly humans had been treated. Paul Roberts shook his head. They had 300 years to treat us with respect. They chose not to. Now they can see what the galaxy looks like without us. Back in Empire space, the disasters continued. A space station that cleaned water for an entire planet stopped working. The alien engineers could not figure out the human-designed filtration system. Millions of people had to boil their water or risk getting sick. A communications array that connected 50 star systems went silent. The Empire's best technicians spent weeks trying to fix it. They finally had to abandon the entire network and build a new one that was much slower and less reliable. Food production dropped by half when automated farms stopped working. The Empire had to import food from other galaxies at enormous cost. Prices went up and people began to complain about their government. Chancellor Vexithera called another council meeting. This time the mood was very different. The Great Hall felt smaller somehow, and the floating lights seemed dimmer. Many council members looked worried. The situation is becoming serious, the Chancellor admitted. Her voice did not have the confidence it once had. We may have underestimated the humans' importance to our operations. Underestimated? Counselor Thrakvin's crystal body flashed bright red. We are facing complete system collapse. Our economy is in ruins. Our military cannot function. Our people are losing faith in the Empire. What do you suggest? Asked another council member. We offer them anything they want, Thrakvin said. Full autonomy, their own territory, complete self-governance, whatever it takes to bring them back. Chancellor Vexithara was quiet for a long moment. Outside the hall's windows, she could see the capital city spreading out below. Even here, there were signs of problems. Buildings with dark windows where the lights had failed. Ships sitting in the spaceport because no one knew how to fix them. Send another message to their ambassador, she finally said. Tell them we are prepared to discuss any terms they wish. But deep down, Vexthara knew it was probably too late. The humans had tasted freedom, and they were thriving without the Empire. Reports from their new colony spoke of rapid growth, amazing technologies, and happy, productive people. The Empire had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had let their most valuable citizens walk away, and now they were paying the price. 2 years had passed since the humans left, and the Galactic Empire was dying. Chancellor Vexithara stood at the window of her office, looking down at the capital city. Half the buildings were dark now, the beautiful floating bridges that connected. The towers had stopped working months ago. Even the air recycling systems were failing, making the atmosphere thick and hard to breathe. The latest reports lay scattered across her desk like evidence of a crime. Industrial output had dropped by 70%. Trade income had almost completely stopped. 3 member species had formally left the Empire, and 5 more were threatening to follow. Counselor Thrakvin entered her office without knocking. His crystal body was flickering between angry red and worried yellow. The Aquatic Collective just announced they are joining the Human Trade Network, he said. They are abandoning our shipping routes completely. Vexthara turned away from the window. Her compound eyes reflected the dim emergency lighting that had replaced the normal illumination systems. How many does that make? 17 species have established direct trade with the human colonies, Thrakvin replied. They are calling it the Cooperative Network. No central authority, no mandatory taxes, no forced labor requirements. The irony was bitter. The Empire had controlled trade for 1,000 years by making themselves essential. They had forced every species to go through Empire systems, Empire regulations, Empire approval. Now the humans were showing everyone a different way. On the human colony world of New Terra, Captain Alex Morrison sat in the command center of the HCS Liberty. The ship was sleek and white, built with technologies that the Empire had never seen. Through the viewports he could see the planet below. Green continents, blue oceans, and white clouds just like old Earth, but somehow more beautiful. Another message from the Empire, reported Communications Officer Carol Jensen. She was a young woman with bright eyes and a quick smile. They are sending a full diplomatic mission this time. Honor guards, gift ships, the works. Alex shook his head. They still think this is about money or status. They do not understand what they really did to us. The reports from Empire Space painted a picture of complete collapse. Rebellions were breaking out on frontier worlds. The proud Zephyrian military could not even maintain order in their home systems. Planets that had been loyal for centuries were declaring independence. But the most interesting reports came from species that had never been part of the Empire. The gentle giants of Proxima had always avoided galactic politics. They were huge, peaceful beings who lived quiet lives on their forest worlds. But they had sent ambassadors to the human colonies, asking for friendship and trade. The nomadic merchants of the Void Ranges had been space travelers for millions of years. They had never settled on planets or joined any government. But they had formally recognized human sovereignty and established trading posts in human space. Even more surprising were the messages from Empire species. Secret communications from Zephyrian colonies asking if they could defect to the human network. Korthak mining guilds wondering if they could establish independent relationships with human worlds. Dr. Richard Kane was working in his new laboratory on Haven when he received a visitor. The being at his door was unlike anything he had ever seen. It looked like a tree that could walk, with bark-like skin and leaves instead of hair. Its voice sounded like wind through branches. "I am Gruthan of the Forest Worlds," the being said. "We have heard of your people's achievements. We wish to learn from you." Dr. Kane invited the alien into his lab. The walls were covered with displays showing his latest projects. Machines that could repair themselves. Computers that could learn and grow like living things. Technologies that seemed like magic, but were based on human understanding of how things really worked. "Your people left the Empire," Gruthan observed. "This took great courage. We have watched your progress with interest." "We had no choice," Dr. Kane replied. "They wanted to change us into something we were not. We chose to remain human and find our own path." The Forest Worlds had been neutral for thousands of years. They had never joined the Empire, but they had never opposed it either. Now they were offering to share their knowledge of biological systems with the humans. In return, they wanted to learn human engineering techniques. It was the kind of partnership the Empire had never allowed. Equal exchange between equals, no dominant species, no subject races, just mutual benefit and respect. Back in Empire space, the situation was getting desperate. General Veldan stood in what used to be the Empire's most important military base. Half the equipment was broken. The other half worked poorly because no one knew how to maintain it properly. "Sir," said one of his officers, a young Zephyrian with nervous eyes. "The Outer Rim colonies are requesting military support. Pirates are attacking their supply convoys." "With what ships?" the general asked bitterly. "Half our fleet is grounded for repairs we cannot make. The other half cannot coordinate their movements because our communication systems keep failing." The Empire's military had once been the most feared force in the galaxy. Now they could not even protect their own territory. Pirates and raiders were growing bold, attacking Empire worlds with little fear of retaliation. The economic situation was even worse. The Empire's currency was worthless outside their own territory. Species that had used Empire credits for centuries were switching to barter systems or local currencies. Some were even creating new forms of money based on human designs. Chancellor Vexathara received a report that made her want to break something. The planet Kepler 442b, which had been a loyal Empire world for 500 years, had just declared independence. They had done it by signing a mutual defense pact with 3 human colonies. "How is this possible?" she demanded of her advisors. "Kepler 442b has no military, no space fleet. How can they defend themselves?" "The humans are sharing their defensive technologies," replied Chief Advisor Zickmore. "Force fields, automated defense platforms, stealth systems we have never seen before. They are making small worlds as secure as fortress planets." The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Human technology had advanced far beyond what the Empire possessed. While the Empire had been focused on controlling and exploiting, humans had been learning and creating. They had developed solutions to problems the Empire did not even know existed. Ambassador Helen Carter received her final instructions from the Human Colonial Council. She was to close the embassy and return to human space. Her mission was complete. She had observed the Empire's collapse and reported everything back to her people. As she packed her belongings, Helen thought about her years in Empire space. She had tried to build bridges between humans and aliens. She had believed that understanding and cooperation were possible, but the Empire had been too proud to listen. Now it was too late. The galaxy was changing, and the Empire was being left behind. The diplomatic mission that arrived at New Terra was impressive by old standards. 12 ships carrying delegates from every major Empire species. Gifts worth billions of credits. Promises of power and position that once would have seemed incredible. President Susan Mitchell received them in the council chambers of New Geneva, humanity's newest and most beautiful city. The building was made of materials that seemed to glow with inner light. The air was fresh and clean, filled with the scent of growing things. "We come to offer partnership," said Chancellor Vexthera, who had made the journey herself. Full equality in the Empire, shared governance, anything you desire. Susan Mitchell was a tall woman with silver hair and kind but firm eyes. She had been a teacher before becoming president of the Human Colonial Council. She understood that some lessons had to be learned the hard way. Your empire is dying, she said simply. We can see it in your reports, in your empty territories, in the desperation that brought you here. You do not want partnership. You want salvation. We offer you the galaxy, Vexithera insisted. Power beyond what any species has ever held. We do not want to rule the galaxy, Susan replied. We want to live free in it. We want to build something better than what came before. The meeting ended without agreement. The Empire delegation returned to their ships and departed, carrying the news that humanity would not save them from their own failures. The galaxy was entering a new age, and the old empire would not be part of it. 5 years had passed since humanity walked out of the Empire. The galaxy looked completely different now. Where the Galactic Trade Empire once ruled with an iron fist, dozens of smaller governments had taken its place. Some were good, some were bad, but all of them were learning that cooperation worked better than conquest. President Susan Mitchell stood on the balcony of the Interspecies Council building on New Geneva. The city spread out below her like a dream made real. Humans lived, alongside aliens from 40 different worlds. Zephyrian architects worked with human engineers to build towers that touched the sky. Korthak artists created sculptures that sang in harmony with human musicians. This was the first Interspecies Cooperation Summit, and beings from across the galaxy had come to see what humanity had built. Representatives from 67 different species filled the Great Assembly Hall. Some had been enemies for thousands of years, but here they sat together, talking about peace and trade and shared prosperity. We are not here to replace the old empire, Susan said to the gathered delegates. Her voice carried clearly through the hall thanks to translation devices that Dr. Kane had perfected. We are here to build something that has never existed before. A galaxy where every species is valued for what they can contribute, not controlled, for what they can produce. In the audience, former Chancellor Vexithara listened with emotions she had never felt before. Her compound eyes reflected the soft lights of the hall, and her mandibles clicked quietly in what humans had learned was a sign of deep thought. The empire she had once ruled was gone, split into a dozen smaller territories. Some had joined the new Cooperative Worlds Alliance. Others remained independent but friendly. A few still clung to the old ways and were slowly dying as their neighbors prospered. Vexithera had requested permission to attend the summit as an observer. She wanted to see what the humans had accomplished, to understand how they had changed everything so completely. What she saw amazed her. The old empire had been built on fear and control. This new alliance was built on respect and mutual benefit. Commander Jake Sullivan, now an old man with white hair and a walking stick, sat in the place of honor reserved for the founders of the alliance. He remembered the day he had walked into the Empire's council chambers and delivered humanity's ultimatum. He had been angry then, frustrated by centuries of being treated as tools rather than people. Now he felt only satisfaction at seeing the galaxy learn to do better. Your species has done something remarkable, Vexithera said to him during a break in the proceedings. You turned weakness into strength, exile into victory. Jake smiled and leaned on his walking stick. We were never weak. You just never bothered to see our real strength. You saw muscles and minds that could work. You never saw hearts that could hope and spirits that could dream. The summit lasted for 3 weeks, and by the end, the Cooperative Worlds Alliance had grown from 12 founding members to 31. The new alliance operated on principles that seemed strange to those who remembered the Empire. No species was in charge of all the others. Decisions were made by consensus, not by decree. Technology and knowledge were shared freely rather than hoarded for advantage. Admiral Lisa Harper, now commander of the Alliance Defense Force, oversaw the integration of former Empire worlds into the new system. It was delicate work. Many species had learned to expect orders from above and found it hard to make decisions for themselves. Others had been oppressed for so long that they did not trust any form of government. Lisa had established training centers on a dozen worlds, where species could learn the skills they needed to govern themselves. Former Empire administrators worked alongside human advisors to create fair laws and efficient systems. It was slow work, but it was working. The biggest success story was the Zephyrian Collective, formed from 17 former Empire worlds populated by Vexithara's people. They had embraced the cooperative model completely, sharing resources and knowledge in ways that would have been impossible under the Empire's rigid hierarchy. Their productivity had actually increased since leaving the Empire, and their people were happier than they had been in centuries. Dr. Richard Kane, now in his 70s but still sharp as a laser, continued his research with a team that included the brightest minds from across the galaxy. His latest breakthrough was a new form of faster-than-light communication that allowed instant contact between worlds separated by thousands of light years. He had shared the technology freely with all Alliance members, making coordination and cooperation easier than ever before. Knowledge belongs to everyone, Dr. Kane often said. When we share what we learn, everyone benefits. When we hoard it, everyone suffers. The contrast with the old Empire was stark. The Empire had kept its best technologies secret, using them to maintain control over subject species. The Alliance shared everything, trusting that cooperation would produce better results than competition. The results spoke for themselves. Alliance worlds were prosperous and peaceful. Trade flowed freely between systems. Scientific advances happened at a pace that amazed everyone. Art, music, and literature flourished as different species learned from each other. Even the former Empire territories that had not joined the Alliance were benefiting. The Crystalline Confederacy had signed trade agreements that brought them prosperity without surrendering their independence. The Aquatic Collective had established cultural exchange programs that enriched both their society and those of their partners. The galaxy was learning that diversity was strength, not weakness. That cooperation produced better results than domination. That treating people with respect was not just morally right, but practically effective. Captain Nina Brooks, now an admiral in charge of Alliance exploration, led missions to discover new worlds and make contact with unknown species. Her ships carried diplomats and scientists rather than soldiers and tax collectors. When they encountered new civilizations, they offered friendship and trade rather than conquest and subjugation. One of her most successful contacts was with the deep swimmers, an aquatic species that lived in the oceans of gas giant moons. The Empire had tried to contact them decades earlier, demanding tribute and threatening force. The deep swimmers had simply disappeared into their deepest trenches and refused all contact. When Nina's people approached with offers of cultural exchange and mutual benefit, the deep swimmers cautiously emerged from hiding. They possessed advanced biotechnology that could heal injuries and diseases that had plagued other species for millennia. In exchange for sharing this knowledge, they received protection and access to the broader galactic community. The transformation was not complete everywhere. Some former Empire worlds still struggled with corruption and authoritarian leaders. A few species had turned to piracy and raiding, trying to take by force what they could not earn through cooperation. But these were exceptions, and they were becoming fewer as the benefits of the Alliance model became clear. President Mitchell announced the Alliance's greatest achievement at the summit's closing ceremony. The Prosperity Project would terraform 50 dead worlds over the next century, creating new homes for species whose populations had outgrown their original planets. The cost would be shared among all Alliance members, and the new worlds would be governed by the species that settled them. "This is what we can accomplish when we work together," Mitchell said, "when we see each other as partners rather than competitors, as friends rather than subjects, as equals rather than masters and servants." As the delegates prepared to return to their home worlds, they carried with them more than just agreements and treaties. They carried a new vision of what galactic civilization could be, a vision where strength came from unity, where prosperity came from cooperation, where freedom was not just for the powerful, but for everyone. The old Empire had ruled through fear and died from its own cruelty. The new Alliance thrived through hope and grew stronger with every species that chose to join. Humanity had walked out of slavery and into the stars, They had shown the galaxy that there was a better way to live, a better way to grow, and a better way to dream. The Empire had learned too late that the species they had dismissed as useful tools were actually the key to everything they had claimed to want. Now the galaxy belonged to everyone, and everyone was free to make it better.